Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely flip the script on something we all absolutely dread, something we all try to avoid at literally all costs, and that is failure. We are going to transform how we perceive closed doors, and we'll do it by looking directly at the actual documented events of one of the most remarkable entrepreneurial journeys of our time, the story of Jack Ma. Now, this isn't just some fluffy, feel-good motivational concept. We're going to look at the hard data of his rejections and break down exactly how he used them to build a global empire. Let's get right into it.
30. Yep, that is exactly how many times people sat across from Jack Ma, looked at his potential, and flat out said no before he ever found real success. We aren't talking about mild setbacks here. We're talking about absolute, hard rejections.
I mean, when you actually break that down, the sheer, almost comical volume of rejections across completely different fields is just wild. He applied for 30 different jobs and was rejected. He applied to Harvard, he pitched to investors, he even applied to the police force. And look, let's be honest, he probably wouldn't have made a great beat cop anyway. But here is the real hook. Every single one of those closed doors, every single no, actually pushed him directly toward the right door. He obviously didn't know it sitting in those rejection rooms, but those failures were literally making him richer.
Okay, let's dive into case study 1, the KFC isolation.
Picture this. It's 1994. Jack Ma's 24, he's hopeful, he's broke, and he's applying to a brand new KFC in his city. 24 people applied for a job there. 23 got accepted. Jack Ma was the single, isolated rejection out of that entire group. Can you imagine walking home that day? The source material notes he wasn't even angry or upset, he was just intensely confused. Like, what is wrong with me? Why does everyone say yes to everyone else but no to me? He went home, didn't tell his family, and just sat quietly for a really long time with that specific failure.
But sitting in that quiet confusion actually led to a massive psychological pivot. He realized KFC only met him for 5 minutes. They didn't know his potential. They didn't say no to his future. They simply said no to a temporary version of him, a 24-year-old version that he was going to outgrow anyway. When someone rejects you, they're really only rejecting who you are today, and who you are today is not your final form. KFC was right. It just wasn't where he belonged.
Moving right along to case study 2, the Harvard mirror.
So let me ask you, how do you personally handle repetitive failure? Once, maybe twice, Jack Ma applied to Harvard not once, not twice, but 10 times. 10 separate applications, 10 separate rejection letters basically saying, thank you, but no. By his 6th attempt, even his friend was telling him to just stop, saying they clearly just didn't want him. But he kept applying. Why? Not out of desperation, actually, but out of pure curiosity. He wanted to understand the standard he wasn't meeting. He wanted to know what Harvard saw that he didn't. Well, after 10 rejections, the realization hit him, and this is a massive lesson for all of us. Every rejection acts as a mirror. It reflects something back to you about yourself that you simply cannot see on your own. The feedback from Harvard's repeated rejections essentially told him, your thinking is too different for our system. Your approach just doesn't fit our structure. And he didn't take this as a defeat. He took it as incredibly vital information.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between trying to force a fit versus fully embracing your unique path. He realized that if his thinking was too different for the best university in the world, then his thinking belonged somewhere else entirely. He realized he needed to build something that universities couldn't even teach, so he went out and built Alibaba. The prestigious places that reject you are very often protecting you from a future you were never meant to inhabit, a future of just fitting into someone else's system.
Which brings us to case study 3, the investor filter. Let's fast forward a bit to 1999. Jack Ma has started Alibaba, and he desperately needs capital for this completely unproven venture. So he pitches to 35 investors. Just listen to the polite excuses he received from the ones who said no. Jack, the internet will not work in China. Jack, this idea is way too early. You have no technical background, or you're just a teacher. What do you know about business? The contrast between these dismissals and the massive reality of the Alibaba we know today is absolutely incredible. Out of 35 investors, 34 said no. Only one said yes. But those 34 no's were not failures. They were filters. Think about it. If all 35 had said yes, he would have had 35 investors who ultimately didn't really understand his vision, pulling the company in 35 different directions. Those 34 no's filtered out the wrong people so that the right people could find him. They actively protected his company.
So this really brings us to a total redefinition of the word itself. In fact, if we look at the data, rejection is really just life's way of redirecting you, not punishing you. It's kind of like driving. You want to reach a destination, but suddenly a road is closed. You don't just stop the car and vow never to drive again, right? No, you find another road. Rejection is just a closed road. It is not the end of the journey, it's a different route, and honestly, often that different route is far more beautiful. Just think about the alternate reality here for a second. If KFC had accepted him, he'd be serving chicken instead of building global companies. If Harvard had accepted him, he'd be sitting in someone else's classroom instead of creating classrooms for millions. If those early investors had said yes, he would have totally compromised his vision just to make them happy. So the crucial point is every single no he received made that final ultimate yes exponentially more powerful. All right, let's get into the actionable playbook.
Okay, so we understand the philosophy, but how do we actually use it? Well, here are 3 specific steps to handle the closed doors you are facing right now in your own life. Step 1, feel it for exactly 1 day, not 1 week, not a month. Give yourself permission to be sad, angry, and confused, but just for 1 day. Step 2, on day 2, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Don't ask why it happened to you, ask what you can learn from it. Find the lesson hiding inside the rejection. And step 3, keep going. Use it as fuel. Turn every no into a mental list of motivation to show people what no builds. Keep going, especially when nobody else believes. Because ultimately, the person who becomes truly great isn't the most talented or the luckiest. It's certainly not the person who managed to avoid rejection. It's always the person who was rejected the absolute most times and simply kept going anyway. Overcoming rejection isn't a sign of failure. It's the actual prerequisite for winning. I want to end our explainer today by leaving you with this one provocative question to ask yourself the next time you face a setback. When that door closes, look at it closely and ask, is this a rejection or is this a filter? Remember, you aren't being told you aren't enough. You are simply being told, not here, somewhere else. Thanks for joining me for today's explainer. Now go take this insight, find the lesson, and keep going.